Give a one-word description of each of your kids, like their personality.
And Dad, you're going to do it too.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're going to put you on the spot.
Probably similar, but yeah.
Liam, oh goodness. He's very focused. I would say focused. Charlotte is fun. She loves to flip around and just have fun. She always has a smile on her face. Caroline is curious.
Oh, that's a good word.
She likes to explore everything.
Dad, I'm going to shift it a little bit. What are a couple of things that each of your kids love to do?
Liam loves to play baseball. That's his favorite thing by far, is to play baseball. Charlotte is, as far as activities, she's really gotten into tumbling here recently, but she also really likes to draw, is very artistic, is really good at it, actually. And then Caroline just likes to move, to be around other people. She loves to interact with other people. She's a very happy baby. Fortunately, we're thankful for that. Like, she's very easygoing and happy.
This month, we are introducing you to a little girl who is happy, determined, and without a doubt, curious. Everyone, meet Caroline. My name is Seth Carnell, and this is the Go Shout Love podcast. Today, we are in Peachtree City, Georgia, and are sitting down with Caroline's parents, Caitlin and Jeff, who are ready to tell you all about Caroline. Now, I occasionally try and pronounce the diagnosis of our future child, but today, after a few attempts, I'm just going to pass it along to Caitlin and Jeff, who will not only say it correctly, but will tell you all about what it means for Caroline's medical journey and her daily life. I can, however, pronounce the name of Caroline's siblings. She has a brother named Liam and a sister named Charlotte, both of whom adore and care for Caroline in a way that will definitely warm your heart. This is always a favorite of ours, hearing about how siblings of kids on rare medical journeys are stepping up and teaching us all about inclusion and unconditional love. Leading this conversation is Josh Veach, our Executive Director of Go Shout Love, and Jessica Santo, our Family Relations Director and talented photographer. Caroline's story is nothing short of deserving. She's an extraordinary girl, so please help us shout love for her by sharing this podcast on whatever platform you're listening on or social media, and just help us tell her story.
So you kind of have an interesting story with Caroline besides her medical complexities, that you had her during the COVID year.
Yes.
So going into her journey, did you know anything was going on when you were pregnant with Caroline?
No, everything was normal. I had hyperemesis. That was the only thing that was abnormal, but she was growing. She was always in like the 90 to 95th percentile. She was big and happy, and everything seemed fine until 36 weeks to the day. I didn't feel her moving, and I told Jeff in the morning, I said, I just don't feel like she's moving, and we were both kind of like, well, she's getting bigger. She's running out of room.
This is also your third baby, so you kind of know not to get too overthinking about things like that.
And because it was COVID, the older two kids were doing virtual school at home. So I was trying to bounce from computer to computer to help them throughout the day with their work. And then once they were done with school, they were doing Kumon at the time. And I took them up there, and I was just sitting there. And I was like, just give me a sign if I need to go to the hospital. I just don't feel this baby moving. So I stopped at Chick-fil-A, got a large Coke and lemonade, drank those, didn't feel her moving, made dinner. And I told Jeff, I was like, I think we need to call the doctor. But if we call, like, they're going to make us come up. And I delivered up in Atlanta. So he said, that's fine. So sure enough, they said, come on in. And thinking it was going to be nothing, they were going to send us home. He brought the dog, the two big kids. I had to go in by myself because it was COVID. And even the nurse was like, oh, decreased fetal movement. The baby's got a heart rate. It's fine. And the resident came in, and she was going to do a bedside ultrasound. And she just said, I have a feeling I want a full ultrasound, so I'm going to send you down. So she sent me down for a full ultrasound.
And she just did that because of a feeling? Like, there wasn't anything that she saw that just...
Nope. She was like, she has a steady heart rate. There's no variability to it. But she's like, I just have this feeling that we need a full ultrasound. So she sent me down, and the girl who was doing the sono, I could tell she was new, and somebody popped their head in and said, hey, I'm leaving. Do you need anything before I go? And she's like, yeah, I can't get this baby to wake up. Can you see if you can get her to wake up? And turns out...
So when she said that, were you like, okay, I was correct?
I had a feeling once she started and I didn't see her moving on ultrasound that something was up. And then the girl that stepped in, the second sonotech, kind of looked over at her with a stern look. And I said, I was a NICU nurse. I know that look. What's going on? And she said, well, I see that the cord is wrapped around her neck twice. I can't tell you if you're going to have this baby right now, but I can tell you you're not going home. So at that point, Jeff had already started to drive back down to meet a friend halfway to get rid of the kids and the dog.
You say like get rid of we had like, we're like quickly like
pass off.
Modify your
because we
plans.
were an hour away.
Our family doesn't live anywhere nearby. They're in Illinois, so like we didn't have necessarily a family member that could take them off our hands. But fortunately, we had a lot of good friends and have a lot of good friends here that are more than willing to help us when we're in a bind. So that's kind of what happened there.
So I got back up to my room, and the nurse was in there waiting, and she said, I can't tell you you're having this baby right now, but I'm prepping you for an emergency C-section. And as she said that, the resident came running in the room with papers, and she said, your baby will not survive if we induce you. We don't know if she will survive if we do an emergency C-section, so we're trying to do everything as fast as we can to keep you awake. Is there anyone who can be with you? And I said, my husband is on his way. She said, we will let security know. Tell him to just park and run. He will not get stopped, because at that point there were 2 COVID checkpoints. They said they know he's coming. Tell him to run.
And what's going through your mind at that moment? Are you thinking about what's going through your mind? I'm sure everything.
I was trying not to panic. I was trying. I tried to call him, but he's like, I have the kids in the car. All I said was hurry. And I hung up the phone and I called my sister. And she was trying to just talk to me about nothing. Neither one of us had words. Neither one of us remember the conversation. But she was just trying to distract me. And then he walked in the room and they said, okay, it's time. The fastest way, we don't have a gurney to get you down there. Can you walk? So I had to walk down to the OR, and halfway down the hall, they said, we didn't do a COVID test. So they swabbed me for COVID in the hallway, which at that point...
Really?
Did you even get your results?
Change
Did
anything?
you get your results back in time?
No.
For the surgery? I think people were just, no one knew what they were doing. Such a weird moment in time.
So
what was going through your mind trying to get back to the hospital?
Because that's...
No pressure.
The day starts in as completely normal.
Yeah.
And then you think you're going to an appointment that's just going to be a quick thing.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden everything's changed in a matter of minutes.
Yeah.
So what's it like to get that call?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly didn't know really what was going on, because I was just trying to keep the other kids calm and the dog and hurry up and get back. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, but I knew Caitlin. I know Caitlin well enough to know that like when I could just hear it in her voice that like something was up, and I didn't know what really. And but all I could think about was getting the kids to our friend, like meet our friend, and drop them off as fast as I can and just hurry back to the hospital. And it was probably about a 20-30 minute drive from where I was to meet our friend and then back again. So I just was going as fast as I can. The only thing I can remember honestly is like getting up there, like Emory's not in the greatest place, and like as far as there's a lot of homeless people that around there, and this guy had jumped out in front of the car as I was on the way back to the hospital, and I was just frazzled, and I was like, I had to get around him, and it was like the last thing I need right now is like I was trying to get to the hospital, and I walked in and I just really wasn't thinking anything about like other than being there and getting to where Caitlin was and seeing what was going on. But yeah, I was trying to focus on that at the moment, like just getting in there, not really trying to think too much about what happened or what was going on.
Getting rushed to the OR. Jeff gets in. They pause you to take a COVID test. What's the next thing that happens?
They prepped me for the C-section. He came in and she was born within a matter of minutes. She came out and she was not crying. I heard them say there was meconium in her fluid, which I panicked because I was a NICU nurse and I worried that she had aspirated. She started breathing with just minimal stimulation, but she never cried. She never made any noise for the first 28 days of her life. And they took her to the NICU and they said, she just needs a little bit of oxygen, but she's doing great, you know. We're just going to take her to observe her. So we thought, okay. And I just had this feeling after the first time we saw her. I told Jeff, I said, something's not right. And they didn't want me to go see her. And I was like, you cannot keep me from my baby. And they were like, well, you have to be able to transfer from the bed to a wheelchair before you can go down. And so
you were like, oh boy, Dad. And you're like, she's going to do it.
Yeah.
She was born just after 11 p.m. And they said, well, you can go down at 2 or 3 a.m. if you can transfer into a wheelchair. And so Jeff just knew to set an alarm because he knew no matter what, I was going to go down to the NICU. And the nurse didn't come in, so he went out and got a wheelchair. And she was like, you should not be going. And Jeff just said, just let her. And so we went down, and she was calm at that point.
Did you have to mentally prepare yourself as a NICU nurse because how do you go into the NICU with your child in there, having been a NICU nurse prior?
At first, I didn't really have any real expectations. I just wanted to be with her. Mm-hmm. As the days went on, I was getting very particular about certain things. I didn't like the way they were swaddling. Like, she wasn't swaddled. They weren't doing things developmentally appropriately that I was used to doing. I think they just didn't really know how to treat her as days went on because she didn't fit the typical NICU mold. You think NICU, usually you think preemie, and they have a certain course that they do. Whereas when you have a child with HIE, it's a totally different ballgame.
We didn't really talk about this, but it was interesting. Like we purposely delivered up in Atlanta because Caitlin was a NICU nurse, and something told her that like she wanted to deliver at a hospital that had a higher level of NICU care than like would have been locally here. So that's why we drove an hour, to deliver up there. So like, had she not chosen to do that and we delivered here, I don't honestly think that the outcome would have been even the same, as what
the Sono tech that said, there's a cord wrapped around her neck. She actually lives very close to us, and she just works up there once every couple months. Wow. And she said, you don't know how lucky you are that you're up here and not down where you live.
Just because they don't have the capabilities to discover that as quickly and then be able to react as quickly?
I think so, and they don't have residents. They don't have doctors there. Emory has doctors there 24/7. Their OBs take shifts. They're there for 12 hours no matter what.
Yeah.
So I want to circle back eventually and to talk a little bit more about her diagnosis. But so at this point, you're delivering at a hospital that you didn't deliver your other two out of a gut instinct. You go to have her sonogram because of a gut instinct of her not moving. So what does that tell you about trusting that instinct? And what advice do you give to moms as to when to trust that or when not to? Because a lot of the times as moms we're told everything's fine. And most of the time it is. How do you differentiate that gut feeling of we need to go now, we need to do this for sure?
For me, it was just a feeling that would not go away. With the other two kids, there were times where I went in to the doctor because I had a concern, and they're like, nope, it's fine, everything's fine. And that was it. concern went away. I didn't, once I was reassured, but this was just, it's almost like a nagging feeling. So like if you have a feeling that just won't go away, go in and get checked.
There's usually a reason.
Mm-hmm. There's a reason they call it a mother's instinct.
Mm-hmm.
And Jeff, you strike me as a really like calm, reasonable, analytical kind of thinker. Is that accurate?
Mostly, yeah. I think that probably hits the nail on the head.
So as that in a supporting role as a husband, how do you handle that side of things, of being supportive and yet encouraging, while also, like what Jess was saying, sometimes it is nothing, and kind of trying to rationally walk through like these tough decisions? How do you find your role in that?
I think I just have learned over the years to trust her, like her instinct and like what she needs. Like, and even like I said, she was in the hospital that we did. Like, I know she was always kind of like, hey, people are gonna think we're crazy for wanting to go up here to deliver. And I said, it doesn't matter. Like, it is what you want, and like I support it because I trust. I trust. She was a great NICU nurse, so I know she sometimes doesn't believe me when I say that, but like I trust what she says, and like so I think just that's the best I can do is to support her, even though I try not to think too much about things anymore, like to in the details, I guess, of what's going on. Sorry if I'm cramping my leg here.
You're good. So spoken like a wise husband that has just learned to go and do what the wife says.
Yeah.
A lot of wisdom.
I think over the years and like through the experience, honestly, I know a lot of people say like, you seem so calm. Like I think I just kind of have to be, out of like, I can't, like,
one of us has to be calm.
you can't, there's so many things that could stress you out that like, if you're not, then like it takes your toll on you. So like I've just kind of become more and more calm, honestly, over time, like just because I have to be, which is, I'm not, there's nothing wrong with that.
We in the families that we've talked to, everyone kind of has a different take on stress and dealing with the complexities and all the unknowns, whether it's the day-to-day stuff that has to get done, or it's the unknowns or the future and all these different things, which all those things are real life for everybody. But obviously in your situation with, a child in a complex situation, I'm sure it's even more magnified. Have you guys found ways to communicate or work through that individually or as a couple, or any advice that you might have for individuals or couples going through something similar?
Yeah, I think we pretty good regular communication. Like we talk regularly, like through issues that we are going through or whatever. And I think the one thing I would encourage people to do, and I think especially for dads, like I think there's some groups that I've joined since this that I think just tend to have the feeling like I can't ask for help, or I can't, there's something can't be wrong with me. So like I think guys or fathers tend not to like want to reach out for help, even though I need it. I didn't wind up seeking out to have therapy, but like I definitely would encourage people if they need it to go do it. Caitlin, at one point in time, she was went to see a therapist because dealing with all the emotions of everything.
Sure.
And she had a lot of feelings of guilt, even though there's nothing that she did that caused any of that stuff. And a lot of, I think, other parents and moms especially carry that stuff. And so I just encourage people to get help if they need it, and don't feel bad about needing help.
Can you talk a little bit more about the groups that you've found? Because we hear that a lot from moms, that there's a lot of especially Facebook groups.
Yeah.
But there have not been as many resources available, or at least that we've come across, that dads have been able to connect with.
And there should be.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are some, like Facebook, even the main HIE group that we belong to, there's a subgroup that's for dads, but there's very little traffic on it, honestly. I probably feel like I'm crazy. I probably comment on a lot of other groups and like talk with it. A lot of times it is moms that I'm communicating with or talking to, so it's a little bit different, but it doesn't bother me at all. But I think just there are groups out there, but there tends not to be very much, a lot of activity, or, every once in a while there'd be on the HIE group, there'd be a new dad who would join the group and say, hey, I'm dealing with this. And everybody usually jumps in as encouraging, like, hey, reach out anytime you need to, but it's not like a constant ongoing chatter or anything going on there. And there's,
I wish it would be for you guys.
yeah,
Yeah.
You guys deal with so much pressure and so much, just like I said, pressure to make sure everyone is taken care of.
yeah. And there's a couple
Shoulder
families
out.
we got to know. Like I know there's one in particular that I think the wife had said her husband was struggling a lot. And I offered, several times, like, hey, I'm willing to listen. If anything else, like I don't know yet. Obviously, don't know them personally or whatever, but they never did reach out. But I think it's just harder. Like I think there's this mentality that like you can't ask for help, or that you have to deal with it on your own. And
I'm supposed to already have all the answers.
yeah. So for me, I just talking with Caitlin and just I always joke when we go to whatever it is, if I even any appointment I have, sometimes I talk. I'm pretty quiet, but I tend to talk. Like I think that's my therapy. Like it's not scheduled therapy, but people I get to know people, and sometimes like it just all comes out, and that's my therapy, I guess. But
Yeah, I love it. I think we're finding more and more that we have these conversations with families, and sometimes the guys take a little bit longer to crack open, but when they do, they have the most amazing things to say.
Yeah.
So if we could just keep this going where, dads are talking more and people are realizing that dads have a lot to say and they need to say a lot because they need to get it off. Hopefully we can help kind of destigmatize that a little bit.
yeah,
And like at work, sometimes it's hard for him to relate to people because people get so wrapped up in these issues, and he's like, this is nothing. Like what we deal with at home is so like he did find a group at work that they're trying to start a group to work with people with disabilities and become more accessible in their company. So he's trying to see if that's an avenue of something that he could go about to help
yeah.
get back.
It's been great, like just the connections you make through this whole experience. But there's a family that we know from back at home that they also work at the same company I do, and we don't talk regularly, but like just even we've scheduled a couple calls, I've talked with them, just about things we're dealing from insurance issues or just whatever. Like they're there for you, that those people are there for you. I think it's been good. I've been trying to. It's hard. I think the biggest thing I think for me at work is just like is having people like understand or relate to like what's going on. Like it's just
How can people get better about doing that? Like what would be some things that they could do that would help?
I don't know. It's a tough thing because like I think like unless you're like in a situation where you have a child that has special needs or something, it's very difficult to relate to. And I think people mean well, and like I would definitely not say people are not supportive at work, but like it's just a hard thing to relate to. Like when we meet families that have kids with not necessarily the same thing, but maybe a different medical need, like they just kind of get it, like, and it's because they live it day to day. So it's, I don't know. It's I think the biggest thing people can do is just be like understanding and open to, I guess everybody's got things going on. Like it's not just us with medical. There's a million things people have going on in their personal life. So it's not just this.
Just
but
people being more understanding, empathetic.
Yeah, and I think people are getting to be more that way, especially like during the COVID situation. I think that's brought a lot of that out. You get to know people more personally. Like I think working from home and like seeing people's family life like more real time and like meetings and stuff like that has kind of brought some of that out. So.
Well, it seems like Caroline's already kind of paving the way for you in that regard, in work and inclusion. What about her siblings? What has Caroline taught each of those two? Because they love her a lot. You can tell that.
They do. Her brother has definitely changed a lot. He has become very protective of her. He very much worries about her and how people will treat her.
How do you handle that as a mother, seeing your son worry for your daughter?
We've tried talking to him. He doesn't like to talk about his feelings. We've tried having him talk to other people. He doesn't love that either. We found that sports are a good outlet for him. So once baseball was over in the fall, he went to basketball. But he's really picked up on other kids in school around him if they're getting picked on, or if he notices somebody that has, maybe a subtle disability and doesn't get picked for teams. He notices that, and he doesn't try to be overly, oh no, I'm picking you first, but he recognizes that. He doesn't let those kids get picked last. He will help those kids in class to get the right answers to when they're working in a group. He'll say hi to kids that he knows that gets picked on, just so that they know that there's somebody there, even if he's not great friends with them. Mm-hmm. He tries to just say hi, and he just tries to be nice to everybody. And I think that's really he's always been a sweet kid, but I think he's just recognized that his sister is going to have some challenges growing up, and he doesn't want to treat anyone negatively, because he doesn't want anyone to treat his sister that way. Mm-hmm. Charlotte's been kind of quiet and reserved. She's recently come out of her shell, and she's very protective, and she's willing to tell anyone and everyone about her sister's G-tube and her AFOs, and no, she doesn't walk, but watch out what she's going to tell you on her eye gaze. So she just tries to kind of include her sister in on everything. When we're at baseball games, she'll go run around and play, and then she'll come back and be like, okay, well, can Caroline come with me? So she'll take her in the stroller and run around and play with the other kids. And then it's taught other kids around her that she's not scary. She's just like you. Mm-hmm. Just because she can't talk, she can still tell you what she wants.
Kids are the best teachers in regards to that.
Yeah, I mean, we've had kids come up and be like, what's that, when we're giving her water or something in her G-tube, so we tell them. Sometimes they'll say, oh, can I see? Sure. And then, the parents are like, get back here, don't ask questions, what are you doing? And we're like,
what's your advice about that?
Let kids be kids. Kids are curious, let them ask questions.
What if the child asks something where the parent's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you asked that? Yeah. Or are they,
we would just tell the parents, it's totally fine.
Yeah.
We don't mind at all. This is how kids learn. This is how the world gets to be more inclusive. This is how people become more empathetic and understanding. If they can see other kids doing something that's different, we always just say, she doesn't drink water by her mouth. It just goes straight into a tube into her tummy. And most kids are like, well, I like to drink from a straw. And we're like, yeah, isn't it so cool that you get to drink from a straw, and hers she doesn't even have to work for it. It just goes straight into her tummy.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is for parents and adults, don't worry about saying the wrong thing. Because I think they tend to act the other way. Just to stay away. And I can remember this one time we met a lady at, a mom at a lake near our house, so you can take the golf cart there. But we met her, and her son had a feeding tube. Caroline was on a continuous feed at that time, so we had the pump and everything with us. And she saw that, and she's started a conversation about it and whatever. And I can't remember honestly what all the her son had. I think he had CP as well. But we just talked to her for a while, and we were learning and asking questions. And you could tell she was so relieved. And she's like, nobody ever stops and talks to me when I'm with my sister. She had one kid. Nobody ever stops and talks to me because they're afraid to say the wrong thing or that. She was so happy just to talk to somebody.
Oh yeah, that's really sweet.
And I think we're fortunate because we do have other kids, and they have friends through that group. But if you're a single, or you have one kid that has a disability or special need, I think it's even harder because you just
very lonely.
People I don't think intend to exclude you. It just happens because they can't do the same things. They can't run around with the other kids and or whatever. That there's always something that kind of limits them in some way that you just kind of stop getting included on things. And that we are fortunate because we have the other kids that we kind of still have those activities and things we get pulled into. But
I would say in terms of adults too, we've noticed that we don't get invited to things. We still have friends, but we have one set of friends who are great, and they always ask us, hey, we have a babysitter, we're going out, can you guys come? 9 times out of 10 we say no. They still keep asking, and just because we can't go, it doesn't mean that we don't want to be included. Mm-hmm. It means the world to us when someone asks us if we can do something, even if we know we're not going to be able to. And even though this couple knows that we're not going to be able to do, they still ask. And
The invite still matters.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like, and I get it too, because like there's so many times we can't go
We can't,
because
yeah.
you know she's got to go to bed or we've got to take care of her. We're trying to do therapy with her when we can, any free time we have, and it just you know it's hard to go. It's to say yes, and like so you kind of get a situation where it's not like you don't want to, but like that's more important right now is looking after Caroline and making sure she's getting everything she needs. So.
And don't be offended if we say no.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about those therapies just for a minute, because Go Shut Love is hopefully helping for that to happen a little bit more for you guys. So she's been in therapy, intense therapies, since she was 20. How long is she?
In the
So
NICU,
she
they
started when she was 7 days old.
7
She
days
started intensive therapy in the NICU. She was getting therapy 5 days a week. She would get PT twice a week, OT 3 times a week, and then speech 5 days a week. So speech for her at that point was feeding therapy. They were trying to teach her how to suck. When she was born, she did not suck, swallow, or have a gag reflex.
And this, I guess we didn't really cover the medical complexities that she does have going on.
Mm-hmm.
So really quickly, how do we describe her diagnosis, if you can?
Yep, so Caroline was diagnosed with HIE, which is Hypoxic Ischemic Encephalopathy. That means that she did not have blood and oxygen flowing to her brain prior to birth because her cord was wrapped around her neck twice. She had a true knot in her cord, and her cord was wired or hypercoiled. So they said it looked like an old-fashioned telephone cord. So all those things were kind of the perfect storm to lead to her not getting adequate blood and oxygen. And when your body doesn't get blood and oxygen, the first place it shuts off to is your brain. So we learned when she was about 12 hours old, they let me give her a bottle. And we quickly learned that she could not swallow properly. Her vitals changed. She dropped from being like 100% oxygen down to 40. Heart rate dropped. And they had to kind of bring her back. From there, they thought she was having seizures, so they started an EEG. She did not have seizures, which led them to an MRI where she got the HIE diagnosis. From there, when she was 1, she was diagnosed with cerebral palsy and dystonia in her arms. So the dystonia is she can't control her arm movements. It's just kind of a twisting and turning of her muscles. It can be very painful. Hers has gotten better, a lot better with therapy. But that's her big diagnosis. And then actually just a week ago, she had her first seizure. A lot of kids with HIE are prone to epilepsy and having seizures. For her, we don't know what this means since it was the first one. We don't know if it was related to illness. We don't know if this is epilepsy coming out. We're kind of in a wait and see on that.
You just described that all very well.
I'm
Go
curious
ahead.
on the diagnosis. You said that was it an MRI? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Yep.
And how is it the amount of blood flow still to the brain? Is that how they're able to tell, or how does an MRI help diagnose that?
So she has damage. They can very clearly see that part of her brain is damaged. There's 2 areas. For her, it's the thalamus on both sides and the corticospinal tracts. So the way she was presenting when she was in the NICU, when she was 6 days old, they sat us down and said they didn't think she would ever move anything below the neck based on where her damage was, that she would not be able to see or hear. That's kind of where we started. And then they said your best hope is to try intensive therapy.
Yeah.
And so we started the next day.
Yeah. And she's been doing that nonstop since then.
Yes, she did not respond to painful stimuli. She did not respond to touch. And we would sit there and the occupational therapist had us just run our finger up her arm. Nothing ever happened. And then one day she brought her arm up, bent her elbow, and that was what they wanted to happen.
And I'm guessing that had to feel like seeing your kid ride their bike. Like
Yes.
the amount of like pride and joy and like all this work that she's been putting in.
Yeah.
Yep.
Make you pretty proud, mama.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just encouraging. Like the group, the HIA group is the big thing is like they're is hope. Hope for HIE, and like that's the biggest thing in the whole thing is like no matter what the doctors tell you, and a lot of times they don't know, so they tell you that you're looking at a brain MRI and they're telling you that these are the facts. Like there's damage here and here, but they don't. No two kids will be the same. Like you could have the same damaged areas and they could have totally different outcomes. So like they can never tell you. So like the biggest thing is just to not give up on the fact that like something they can do. Neuroplasticity is like a huge thing with kids that have brain damage, and like only they can show us like what they're capable of, and you just got to give them whatever you can, tools and therapies to like help them retrain their brain to rewire it, if you want to think of it that way, to be able to communicate. Because the biggest thing with all this is just the damage to the brain. Like your brain controls everything, and like that's what happens is that there's those damages affect different things for different kids, and different, even like I said, same areas affected, two different kids would have different results. So it's.
What are some of the major things that she's working on now?
Sitting is our biggest goal right now. She's getting a lot stronger. Her body has calmed down quite a bit. She used to just throw herself back all the time. Now she will kind of sit with very minimal support. She did sit for about 5 seconds by herself.
Yeah, it's very like baby steps. Like it's real slow. Like
And you guys try not to cheer too loud
Yeah.
during those 5 seconds.
And startle her.
yeah.
So do intensive therapies help with that?
Yes. So we just did a 5-day intensive therapy down in Florida, and we were hoping that she would get stronger with sitting with it. She decided she was going to start eating by mouth more, which is great. So we're using her G-tube less. She's eating purees by mouth 4 times a day now. We are going to Tennessee next week for a physical therapy intensive, and so we're really hoping to work on sitting, army crawling. Those are kind of our big ticket items right now that we're working towards.
And a lot of people don't know this, but insurance doesn't usually cover intensive therapies.
They do not.
So that's an out-of-pocket expense for your family.
It is, yes. So we are doing a 3-week intensive. So not only are we paying for 3 hours a day, 5 days a week for 3 weeks, out of pocket.
You have to live there. Yeah.
We also have to live there,
Drive there.
Jeff will still be at home with the big kids, so they'll have food expenses here. I'll have food expenses there. So it's just a big.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been really fortunate to
we have.
It's been creative finding friends or family to stay at places instead of renting if we can. Like, and one thing I say about like just the people you meet throughout this journey, like people are so like willing to help you. Like even if someone we didn't even know like had a place somewhere, like they're so like generous and like
People
allowing
want
you
to help.
like to help ease the burden on you financially to make those things happen, because they know it's a huge benefit to the kids.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just really quick talk about this. If we don't end up using it, that's fine. But if we do, I think it'd be cool to have it on podcast. You had a t-shirt design idea about a singer and a song that you heard in the NICU, specifically about a line from that song. Tell us a little bit about that.
So we were driving up to the NICU one day, and Jeff said, this song comes on every day when I'm driving up there. And he said, you have to listen to it.
It really comes on every day when you were driving?
Yeah, it was on the radio all the time. It was popular at the time.
Okay.
Chris Stapleton, a song, and like it really has nothing to do with like, if you think about the lyrics of the song, it's like nothing to do at all with like the situation, but there's just some like lines in it that kind of resonated, like just felt like they made sense for us at the moment. But
what was the line? Do you remember?
I'm spacing right now.
In the hills and the valley.
It'd be like there's mountains to climb.
There's mountains to climb and
rivers across. Totally spacing.
I've got it right here. Oh, I did have it right here.
Can you go grab my phone over there? Let's
see. It was there's rivers to cross and hills to climb. And then you said that reminds us of how far we've come and how we continue to climb hills big and small every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really neat. It's a good reminder for all of us.
Yep. And then there was a line about no matter how, like, driving miles and miles. We used to drive an hour and a half each way for therapy twice a week. And we drove an hour to get to the NICU every single day when she was in the NICU.
How would you describe your day-to-day life now compared to that first, maybe even call it 3 or 4 months?
I think it's more routine now. Like, honestly, like thinking back on, she had so many like monitors and things, like, was constant noises around the house, like beeping, and changing her feeding pump, her apnea monitor, her pulse ox, and like just taking care of her like day to, like, it was. I mean, she had caffeine she was taking regularly. We had all sorts of. We had to change out her feeding. Caitlin was having a pump. I mean, it was just like chaos, honestly. Like, we were just trying to survive. I think it's more calm now, like more structured, but like there's still, I feel a lot of guilt, like, like any free moment we have, like we should be doing more therapy with her at home, or we should be doing this or that with her. Like, that's the hardest part, is that, but you gotta balance, like, the other kids, like they gave up a lot during all those times when we were caring for Caroline, and we gotta make sure that they're being taken care of too, and we need some time to ourselves too, to like take care of ourselves. We don't probably do as good of a job as we could, but it's hard to balance all that stuff.
Sure. Yeah. Jeff, what about Caroline makes you most proud?
I think just that she's like determined. Like, she's very like determined to show us that she's willing to do whatever, and she's I don't know. She's a happy little girl, and I'm like, that makes me it would be honestly tougher, I think, if she didn't smile for the longest time. But I think if she didn't have that, I think that would be harder on us all. But she knows, she lets us know that she's okay, and she's gonna show us what she can do, and that's, I think, one of the most happy and proud about it.
Caitlin, what about you? Makes you proud to be your mama?
That she is so determined and works hard no matter what is thrown at her. From what we were told to what we see, she's kind of always just said, nope, I'm going to do it my way.
Kind of like her mom in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
To stand.
I would maybe use the word stubborn sometimes to describe Caitlin.
In the most complimentary way.
That's
yes.
right. That's right.
But I think the best is that she's gotten stronger, and now she'll give. It's a hug, and we perceive it as a hug. She will put her arms around your neck, and most people would think she's not doing, but we know that it's nice to know that we can feel her love. When she was in the NICU and the day we got her MRI results, I just told Jeff, I said, I just want her to know I love her. That's all I want for her, is to know she's loved. And we know she is. And now we can tell that she
knows and
she
reciprocates.
Knows, yes.
Yeah.
Is that your biggest hope for her future, is to always know how much she's loved?
Yes.
I think you've done that. Yep. I'm good.
Was there anything else that you guys want to talk about that we didn't touch on?
I think maybe just for parents and stuff that going through stuff like this is just to give yourself a break sometimes, and just realize you can't do it all, and you're doing the best you can. And
what would you tell a dad right now that's just at the starting gate, like you were driving to that appointment?
I don't. I think throughout the whole thing, just have faith and believe that you'll get through it. I think one of the things that taught us the most, every time we we go to an appointment and they tell us, oh, you need to do this, or like this is the new thing that she needs right now. Like it's overwhelming. It's like just you would never believe that you could do all those things. Like, but I think back, I tell Caitlin sometimes, like when even like she was in a cast at one point too for her hip dysplasia, and it's like she's it gets hard to say, like it's just another thing we got to deal with, and like you're like it's amazing how much you can do once you get, like, it's just a routine. But I mean, you do give up a lot of things, but like you can do it. Like that's if you can do it. Like anybody can do it. It's not that we'd choose it if we had to, but like you can do it. Like anybody can do it.
And if you get hard news, take it for what it is, but let your child show you what they're going to do. Because the doctors tell you what they know, but what they don't know is how these kids are so determined and what they're really going to do. And don't be afraid to seek out a second opinion. Find a doctor that is going to rally around your kid more than somebody else. Because we've gone through several doctors until we found our team, who is Team Caroline.
At Go Shout Love, we do amazing things for amazing families with kids on rare medical journeys. Each month, we shout love for families through the sale of creative apparel inspired by the kids. This month's The Hard Roads Are the Ones Worth Choosing design is inspired by Caroline, a happy and curious girl from Peachtree City, Georgia, who continues to climb hills big and small every day with determination, even when the roads are difficult. Every purchase in August will go toward the cost of intensive therapy for Caroline that is not covered by insurance. Visit our website at goshout.love to support Caroline through the purchase of a t-shirt, hat, tank top, hoodie, or other items.